Yo guys, what is going on? Finally here at you with a BT23 plus EX9 ruling videos since I did miss out on the last format, so got a little bit of a longer video for y'all today. And yeah, we'll just be talking about a little bit of EX9 as well as the majority of BT23, lots of new cards and decks to talk about. Of course, we got some old favorites like Jesmon and RK, as well as some newcomers like Hudiemon. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the first card I want to talk about is going to be the Black Grandrac Ace, out of EX9. And really what I just want to talk about is the immunity effect on this card, because it's pretty interesting. It is contingent upon your opponent having a 13,000 Digimon or more, and then if that's the case, this becomes unaffected by Digimon effects, gains plus 3,000. So let's say in the case of maybe your board is something like this, and then your opponent slams down this BT13 Gallantmon. So what'll happen here is, let's say, they give you a bunch of memory here, they play this Gallantmon, and then the question is, well, this thing can pop a Digimon, and it becomes 13,000, but then this thing gets immunity. So how exactly does this work? So the answer to this is, as soon as this Gallantmon comes on board, even before its on play activates, the Black Grandramon's all turns kicks in and it becomes unaffected, and it goes up to 15,000 DP. There's not really a trigger window or anything for these sorts of continuous effects. These all turns are just while something is happening, while some condition is met, do X. Like, this is one of those effects where it doesn't really have a speed to it, it's just instantaneous. So as soon as this Gallantmon gets on field, this becomes 15,000 and unaffected, which then makes it a target for the on-play of Gallantmon, because it says delete 6,000, and if you can't delete a 13,000 or higher. But then in this case, you'd be able to target the Black Grandragon, it just wouldn't do anything, because of course, it's unaffected by Digimon effects. In a similar vein, let's say, well, after that, maybe if they didn't pass turn, they wanted to try to pop it again, so then they slammed this promo Gallant, and then in this case, you delete something with 13,000 or more, so then they target this Black Grandragon Ace. Obviously, it can't be deleted by opponent's effects, so in this case, they would actually just get to recover one, and that would be that. So any sort of on-play that would delete Black Grandragon from a 13,000 or more Digimon, it basically just won't work, because this thing becomes unaffected as soon as those bodies hit the board. Another card I think is pretty interesting is going to be Lucemon. So in a similar vein, Lucemon, of course, it's 13,000 or more, so it'll immediately trigger this condition. If your opponent goes into Lucemon here, and then it gives you the option to choose to delete a Digimon or Tamer, you basically, like in this board state, right, I don't have anything I could delete except the Black Grandragon Ace. But even if I choose to or don't choose to, the reality is it doesn't matter, because I can't be deleted by Lucemon's effect, even though he's giving me the option to choose. It's still Lucemon's effect. So let's say in this case I'm like, okay, well, I'll go ahead and delete my Black Grandragon. I can't, so then my opponent will heal one, and I'll trash the security. And then if I choose to not delete anything and let them heal or and then burn one, it's the reality of the outcome is the same. So in this case, it's pretty funny, because unless I have something else on board, I actually just can't. I basically don't have a choice. So it's kind of interesting because that, and then of course, because this thing's 13,000, it'll be active immediately. Okay, so that's Black Grandragon. The last thing I want to talk about this card was actually mentioned by Ace, so shout out to him. I thought this was a really funny kind of board state you can have. Let's say both players have a Black Grandragon. So in this case, right, both of these are 12,000. They look at each other and they say, hey, you're not 13,000 or bigger, so I don't really care about you. I'm still affected by Digimon effects. And then let's say I've got a Gaiomon in play. So let's say I just I Digivolve into this Gaiomon, it's still my turn, I'm going to put this in security, and then as soon as I Digivolve into this, even before it's one Digivolving, or if I hard played it somehow and kept turn, what would happen is this Black Grandragon on my opponent's field would immediately see my Gaiomon. And since it's 13,000 or more, it would become immune, and then it would boost to 15,000. And then, also at the same time, basically immediately, my Grandragon would see his Grandragon say, hey, you're 15,000 or more, now I'm going to go to 15,000 and become immune by effects. So that's kind of one interesting aspect. And then the other even funnier part is, okay, let's say I go ahead and swing this Gaiomon, or it just dies somehow. Okay, check 13k. This goes off the board. Now the question is, what happens to these Black Grandragons? Because they were contingent upon this Gaiomon being here. So like the question is like, oh well, since this Wargreymon no longer sees this Gaiomon, it goes back down, and then this one will go back down. But the actual answer to this is that even if this Gaiomon leaves the field, both these guys are still simultaneously 15,000, so they just both keep each other immune. So it's kind of just a staring contest at that point. So I thought that's pretty funny. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is going to be Belphemon Sleep Mode here, and really just, I mean, kind of a scenario on timing and how resolution effects work. So for that, and I'm going to use Hudiemon as well as some of the other cards here. So let's say my opponent's got a Hudiemon on board. Of course, the Erica underneath it actually gives Alliance. So this thing has two instances of Alliance, one from the Erica and one, of course, from its own effect. And then let's say my opponent's got these two, or let's give them a little bit more. Let's say they've got like a bunch of guys on board here. So what they could do is they could go ahead and attack. Now, Belphemon Sleep Mode actually has this interesting effect where it says whenever any of your opponent's Digimon suspend, by trashing 2 cards in your hand, suspend 2 of their Digimon and or Tamers. So let's say, in this case, I have 2 cards in my hand. So as soon as my opponent declares an attack, their when attackings, being the one attacking from Hudie, as well as the Alliance from Hudie, as well as the Alliance from Erica, all trigger at the same time. So they have 3 pending triggers. Meanwhile, I have 1. Now, of course, as many of you probably know, I have my opponent has player priority, so they get to use their effects first. I have to wait. So we're going to be waiting on this effect here. And then now it actually depends on how they resolve these effects as to as to how I'll be able to interrupt them. So let me give you an example. So for example, let's say they use this first alliance of Hudiemon first. So we're going to go ahead and alliance with this Strikedramon, and then since something was suspended, Belphemon actually triggers again. I think I've mentioned this on the channel before. You can have an effect, even if it's once per turn, trigger multiple times as long as it has not resolved yet. The newest instance of the action happening will just trigger it again. So this suspending has triggered Belphemon again, and then of course triggers the Strikedramon. So in Stridedramon's effect, it'll actually draw 1, and then now the newest effect is actually the Belphemon Sleep Mode. So then I can go ahead and discard 2 materials, and then I could go ahead and maybe in this case just suspend down. Let's say they don't have this on field, just suspend down both of those Strikedramons. Now in this case, actually pretty funny, they would actually just be able to draw 2 here, but in that case they would have only gotten the single copy of Alliance, so only 12k2 checks here. Okay. Now maybe in this case, what they could do is, instead of doing Alliance first, they could go ahead and swing with Hudie, and then they could use its effect to play a 5 cost or lower. So let's say, this one attacking says, by returning one of your CS Tamers, activate this Digimon's on play effect. So let's just say in this case I had a Tamer, so let's just say Ryuji here. So what we can do here is go ahead and bounce the Ryuji back to hand. Let's say this goes back to hand, and then playing another CS Digimon from hand. So then we can go ahead and do play, let's say, the 4 Strikedramon, and then of course DP minusing something. Let's just say, for instance, right, this Belphemon Sleep Mode's unaffected, so we don't care about that. And then so number 1, we've gotten that one attacking out of the way, and then because of that, the Belphemon is now the newest trigger, and of course I could choose to pass on this right now, but it is now my priority basically. So after he does the one attacking of Hudie, the newest triggers are going to be the Hudie playing out this thing, any on play of this, which doesn't have one, and then now the Belphemon. So let's say in this case I choose to use the Belphemon and just discard 2. In this case I'm going to go ahead and suspend these 2. Of course my opponent will get to draw 2 cards, but then now they have the one attacking, the Alliance trigger, which is basically timed as the one attacking. So then now they could go ahead and suspend this one first, newest trigger, draw 1, suspend this one, a newest trigger, draw 1, and then now that would actually be 3 checks at 17k. Now, obviously, if I was smart, I would probably hold it at that point, the Belphemon, but you get my idea of, like, you have to do the Alliance triggers once per turn, and anytime any new thing suspends, this will always be the news trigger, so I can kind of interrupt, and depending on how things resolve, I could either force my opponent to, I could possibly force my opponent to only get the 1 additional Sec Plus instead of 2 Sec Plus from double lines. So just keep in mind on how you guys are resolving things. The last card I want to talk about from EX9 is an interesting one. It's going to be DarknessBagra. So specifically this card's all turns effect, where it says this Digimon gains all turns effects on level 6 Digimon with Bagra army. So for example, Blastmon right here. So one cool thing you could maybe do is if you had enough sources to like Digicross, maybe you had a bunch more of these, and then you know, you digi-crossed here, and then you went Blastmon, play out the Blastmon maybe with that passing turn, and then you went using its on-play effect, being able to taunt one of your opponent's Digimon, and then after that maybe you could do a, you know, Digivolve with DarknessBagra on top, and then as soon as you do, this now has 4 instances of the same altern. So what I really want to get at here is, even though these alterns are once per turn, so for example, if you just had the 1 Blastmon, or maybe if you had 2 Blastmon on the field, each of them you could only use once, but because DarknessBagra is making copies, in this instance you can actually use all 4 of these as like separate effects. So for example, if my stack was something like this with maybe a bunch of memory inherited or a redirect or something, when my opponent goes ahead and declares the attack, all 4 of these effects triggered by trashing any 2 of this Digivolutions card, gain sec +1 plus 3,000. So I could go ahead and do this one by one. I could go ahead and, let's say, trash this one, the first one I want to resolve, because if you trash like a different one, you'll have to whiff on it. So I can, you know, trash these 2, gain sec +1, 3,000, and then gain a memory here, do the same thing again here, gain a memory, and then potentially turn skip them and do it a bunch of times, and now I've got sec +4, 12,000 extra DP, and then you know, you can do some funny stuff with that. But DarknessBagra are really just there to copy additional effects. Okay, the next card I want to talk about is going to be Jesmon, and there's a couple aspects of this card. Number 1, the when digivolving when attacking effect, which is not once per turn. This effect basically lets you play either a token, which we've seen this token before on the older Jesmon, or you can play a Sistermon in his name from hand or trash without paying the cost, but this effect cannot play the same names as any of your Digimon. So what this means is, let's say, I don't know, my opponent had like something bigger on field, so I could warp into this with the second condition, so warp into Jesmon, pay the 5, and then effect, let's say I've got these guys in my trash. What I could do on Digivolve is, first of all, play the how do you say this, Atho, Rene, and Poor token, and then basically what this will then do is, using the second effect, being able to then attack security, or just attack in general, just declare an attack, and then a couple things will trigger here for alliance as well as the one attacking, and then what we could do is play out the one attacking here, maybe play out one of these Sistermons, get the on play. In this case, I don't have a top security card, but I actually do get to recover, so if you're at 0, you would get to just recover straight up there, and then what we could do is alliance maybe with the token here, get in our 2 checks, and our opponent's turn this reboots. What you can't do is play something, let's say I've got like double Sistermon here, and then I do that same thing. I go, you know, when Digivolving, play Sistermon Blanc, and then do the same thing since something was played off of that effect. Go ahead and swing security, and then use the one attacking. I cannot then play the Sistermon Blanc because these have the same name. Now, this doesn't mean you can't play a Sistermon. So, for example, if I'd played Blanc on the first one, I could then play CL on the second one, get its on play, delete something 4 cost or lower, nothing on the board, and then maybe alliance here, effect to maybe de-digivolve something on my opponent's board. So you can be pretty versatile with the you know, the cards that you can play out, but just keep in mind you couldn't play, like, let's say if you had played the token on the first on Evo and then swing, you could not then play a token on another one because obviously this has the same name. Another thing I want to talk about, which I think is pretty cool, is the synergy this card has with Red Scramble. So for example, let's say it's my opponent passed me turn and I've got maybe nothing on the board. This is my trash right here, and then what I could do is, since my board's empty, start of my turn, go ahead and trash this, place the Jesmon on top, play out the Huckmon. Obviously, in this case, I would deck out because I only have the one in deck and I have to search it. But let's say that's not the case. Let's say I just grab, I don't know, Sistermon off the search and then draw for turn. I'm going to go ahead, maybe draw this Jesmon or something. Then what you can immediately do is just go ahead and digivolve this for the 5 cost, you know, use its effect to play something, and then since something was played, you can actually attack. Now, the reason you can do it with this one and you couldn't do it with the older Jesmon is because this one specifically has Rush, so even though this Huckmon was played off of the Scramble, I can actually just immediately go into this Jesmon and then, you know, play a body, swing, play another body, maybe heal one, alliance for some checks, and you know, go from there. So this card, really, really cool stuff. Okay, so the next card I want to talk about is going to be the CS Phoenixmon here. I guess also the Zaxxon Phoenixmon, but no one's playing Zaxxon. This card is a really, really cool effect where it says on play when Digi when attacking, delete a 9,000 or less, and then as part of the same effect, you may return up to 3 non-Digi-Eggs from their trash to the bottom of the deck. So this effect is really cool for basically circumventing on deletion effects. And what I mean by that is, let's say you've got something like this Phoenixmon, and your opponent here is trying to commit some war crimes with Matt Ishida here. So what we've got is a Dusk and a Velgar. What you could do is slam this Phoenixmon, let's say giving my opponent 10 or something, and then on play I'm going to go ahead and delete this Velgarmon with the on deletion to play back that Matt Ishida from the trash there. So we're going to go ahead and delete this, and then while this has met its condition of being deleted, we still have to resolve the effect of Phoenixmon to then return up to 3 non-Digi-Eggs from their deck, from their trash to the bottom of the deck. So what we could then do is go ahead and grab each of these cards, and since it says non-Digi-Egg cards, and it's just cards, right? We can return the Tamer as well. So we're going to send Matt back to the Shadow Realm here and just get rid of all these 3, put them on the deck. And then now that that's done resolving, you would then resolve the on deletion of the Duskmon, or I guess the Velgarmon in this case with the Dusk inherited. But since it is no longer in the place it needs to be, aka the trash, it does not actually resolve. This is similar to something like Omnimon Merciful Mode for the couple formats that was pretty relevant. Basically removing this from the location it needs to be in order to trigger. So there we go, crisis averted. Another cool thing you can do with this is if you've got maybe an interruptive effect, your opponent's got something like this BT23 Shakumon. Okay, so this card says when this would leave the battle area, other than by your effects, so by your opponent's effects, fine, you may play a level 4 lower yellow-black or CS trade Digimon from Digivolution cards without paying the cost. So let's say we've got something like this Phoenixmon X with, of course, the condition of its end of attack becoming on deletion, since we got our normal Phoenix underneath, and we've got another one of these in hand. And what you could do here is, let's say we go ahead and pass over turn, swing our opponent's security with Blitz. They check the security, whatever, we live, we're fine. And then this go ahead and we trigger the end of attack here. What will happen is we can go ahead, okay, end of attack, play an 11,000 lower, bird or beast or whatever to delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the same or lower DP. So then what we can do here is play the Phoenixmon as a part of the Phoenix X effect to then delete the Shakumon. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and delete the Shakumon. Of course, this has the interruptive where you can just spawn out Hudie from sources. These go to trash. And then now, off of that same effect, off the Phoenixmon X's effects, a Digimon was played, aka the Phoenixmon, and a Digimon was played off of the Shakumon all turns effect since it left the field. So then both of these on plays are now pending. Of course, since it is still our turn, since we blitzed and we have not passed over turn yet, we still have effects resolving, we will actually get the Phoenixmon effect first. So then we can go ahead and delete a 9,000 or lower, and would you look at that, Hudie is a 9,000 lower, so we can pop this and then maybe get rid of stuff in their trash. So let's say we go ahead and bottom deck 1, 2, 3, get those out of here. These are in the trash. Get these down into the deck, and then now our opponent's Hudie would resolve, but since it's no longer on the field, they can't actually resolve anything. So the more I've been testing this card, the more I'm really liking it. Super versatile, so for all you Birds player, there you go, really cool stuff right there. The next card I want to talk about is just a short one. Specifically, it's going to be the interaction between the Black Scramble here as well as Strikedramon from BT23. So this card says when your option cards are placed in the battle area, this Digimon may Digivolve into a Digimon with Cyberdramon or CS for -2. So let's say we're at 3 memory here, we've got this Monodramon on field. What we can do is from our hand, we're going to play Black Scramble. Okay, so we're going to resolve the first effect, which says one of your Black Digimon may Digivolve into a Black Digimon card in the hand for -3. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to Digivolve this for -3, so just for, we just pay the cost of Scramble, which is 2, and then a Resolving Scramble, we draw for Digivolve, Resolving Scramble, then place this card in the battle area. So then we're going to place this in the battle area. And then since this Strikedramon was on the field midway into Scramble effects, but still before it placed itself, so it saw the Scramble place itself, we can actually then immediately trigger the Your Turn effect of the Strikedramon to then Digivolve into a CS/Cyberdramon for a cost of 1 in this case. Going to go ahead and Digivolve that for 1, draw an extra card. This effect, obviously, on play Digivolving, pop a 5 cost, so we get rid of one of these Cyberdramons here. So that one I thought was a pretty unique interaction. The next card I want to talk about is really just Examon, the timing on the Your Turn effects of when your opponent's security stack is removed from your turn once per turn, you can trash an option in their battle area, then you trash one option in their battle area, then delete one of their suspended Digimon or Tamers. So let's say in this case, Our opponent's board is something like this, and we go ahead and swing into security. I really want to talk about what is the timing between this and a card that has a security effect. So this triggers as an effect that happens when a card is removed from the security stack. However, security effects are always the thing that happens first whenever you flip over a security card. So in this case, let's say Examon checks the Comet Hammer here. This security effect is going to digivolve for one of your opponent's Digimon, in this case something on my board. So let's say my opponent goes ahead and digivolves Cyberdramon down to the rookie, and then it's going to place itself in the battle area. So it's going to place itself right here. And then now, finally, after that whole security effect is done resolving, we can then use Examon to then trash one of their options, and would you look at that, they have an option now since it was placed off the security effect. So in that sense, if you hit a delay, the delay will always play itself out. Maybe it's something like a memory boost. It will always play itself out, and then you get to trash it immediately off Examon. And then in this case, since they've got suspended Digimon or Tamer, let's say we go ahead and pop the Tamer. So that's pretty neat. What isn't cool is what happens if maybe you hit something that has an actual removal effect. So maybe something like Chaos Dag. If we check this in security, Chaos Dag will go ahead and remove the Examon first before it gets the chance to see its effect of when the security is removed. So in this case, we would not get to remove the Comet Hammer here. So just keep in mind when security effects resolve versus when something like the Examon or like a Magnamon X would resolve when something is removed from security. Okay, the next card I want to talk about is going to be RK, specifically this Craniamon that has this alternate effect of when any of your opponents, or sorry, when any of your Digimon or Tamers would leave the battle area by an opponent's effects, suspend this Digimon, and then one of his Digimon / Tamers does not leave. So this card, and then obviously has the effect of when the Digimon suspends, delete all of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest play cost. So let's say my opponent's got something like this Omnimon X here, they slam it for a bajillion, and then on play it says, obviously we don't get the first part, but then we get to return one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of the deck, so they're going to go ahead and target our Craniamon here. This will trigger the Craniamon as well as the Cool Boy. So in this instance, you can choose the order on this, and then you can go Craniamon effect to suspend to protect, because it is a Digimon that would leave the battle area. Pretty generic effect there. And then we can resolve Cool Boy's effect to then go play the Omekamon off of the Cool Boy. And then now at this point, the Omekamon on play as well as the Craniamon alterns will trigger at the same time. Let's say if our opponent's got like multiple bodies on board, maybe like one little one and one bigger one, what we could do is use the Craniamon first to delete the lowest play cost, so deleting this, and then we could do the Omekamon. In this case, since we're at like one or fewer, we could go ahead and digivolve into the Omni X to then use its on evolve to choose one of both players' Digimon, delete all others. So in this case, we would maybe choose to delete the Craniamon and then return one of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom deck, so returning this. I guess in this case, if we did the other way, where we did the Omekamon first, we could do Omni X, but then we'd have to get rid of the Omni X in this case, so we'd say, you know, we're going to keep this suspended, we're going to keep the Craniamon here, delete this, deleting this, and then bot decking one of your opponent's things, so bot decking this, since this has to fully resolve before you do anything else, and then we would get the Craniamon effect to then blow up your opponent's field. So in this case, either way, we lose one body and our opponent loses two bodies. It's just a matter of whether you want to keep the Craniamon or whether you want to keep the Omnimon X. Okay, the next deck I want to talk about is a deck I've been having a lot of fun with. Specifically, it's just the Grandracmon. This card has a couple of really cool effects. The one I really want to talk about is going to be when any of your Digimon digivolve from the trash, delete all of your opponent's lowest level Digimon. So right off the bat, this effect is just when any of your Digimon, including itself, digivolve from the trash. So for example, if you have something like one Grandracmon on the field, and let's say at the start of your turn you've got something like this. So this card's first effect says at the start of the main phase, one of your Digimon may digivolve into a level 6 or lower undead dark animal without paying the cost. So let's say we're at 1. We start our main phase, and then we go Grandrac, digivolving the Matador into another Grandrac, and then immediately we'll be able to see This one, since it digivolved from the trash, will get that all-turns, and then we will also get the second all-turns from this copy of Grandrac. So in this case, you would get both. So in this example, you would get both, and then you would be able to trigger them one time, delete all lowest level Digimon, so delete level 4s, and then delete level 7s. So that card is pretty cool because it works off of itself. Like if you had something like a Skull Belushi, so maybe in this case, if you had something like, maybe you just had one stack, and then you had something like a Surbex, so you went, Digivolve Surbex, and then this card says, draw discard 1, and then let's say your trash was set up with a Grandrac on top, and then you went, okay, draw discard 1, discard the Skull Belushi, and then Skull Belushi says, when an effect trashes card, since your turn, one of your Digimon may digivolve into purple with Undead Dark Animal, so we can go ahead and digivolve this, since it's Dark Animal, into on our stack here, and then immediately we will get the one digivolving as well as the all turns at the same time, so we can choose the order on that to delete our opponent's lowest level Digimon. So really cool deck there. Okay, so the next deck I want to talk about is going to be Mastemon, specifically the new secret rare, and kind of how the one digivolving and all turns will resolve. So let's say I went ahead on my turn and DNA, I had these two Andromon and Lady Devi on field. I went ahead and DNA digivolve into Masty, and then I'm going to go ahead and use this one digivolving. You may play level 5 or lower yellow or purple card from hand or trash without paying the cost. So then let's say in this case I'm going to go ahead and play Andromon from trash, and then my opponent's got this medieval Gallantmon on board. Obviously now I need to finish resolving the first one digivolving effect of Mastemon. Then if this Digimon stack has 2 or more same level cards, which it definitely does from these two, we can then trash the top cards of both players' security stacks such that they have 3 left. So in this case, we're both at 4, so we're going to go ahead and burn 1 and burn 1. Now in this instance, right, all off of that first effect, a security card was removed because of that last part of the one digivolving. A Digimon was played based off of the first part, so then that triggers medieval, as well as the on play of the Andromon. So in this case, because it's our turn, we get to choose the order of the on play of Andromon as well as the all turns of Mastemon, with our opponent's medieval Gallantmon pending. So this does change depending on how you resolve this. So in this instance, what we could do is the very clear, easy thing to do to get rid of the problem is using the all turns effect of Mastemon to, since something is removed from, place the Digimon bottom of security. So we can go ahead and put this Gallantmon at the bottom of security. Then we won't have to worry about its when it's when digivolving / on play effect or whatever whenever priority comes around. So we resolve that first, then we go Andromon to then go use effect to search the security, or sorry, not search, just add the top card to hand. So add this, and then since we're at 2 here, we're at 3 or less, we get to recover. So let's just say we then recover, and then that would actually, if let's say we had done that in a different order, where our opponent has medieval, and then we do, instead of Mastemon's effect first, we do Andromon's effect first. So the all turns is pending. We could do Andromon, add this to hand, and then recover, and then that would actually just trigger Masty again to then do the same thing to get this off the board. So in this case, since it's our turn, and then this triggers again off of the Andromon, it actually doesn't matter. Even if you played something else, maybe like the Lady Devimon, because this is still pending at the same time as this, we will always get to resolve our effects first, basically. But this Mastemon, really, really cool effect. The other thing I want to kind of compare it to was going to be something like Magnemon X, where let's say we do that exact same whole sequence, and then we play the Andromon, and then now Andromon's triggering, Mastemon's triggering, and let's say they hadn't procced the protection on this, let's say turns past or something, and then now the all turns effect of Magnemon X is active. Since the card was removed from the security stack, it is pending. So what will happen is, obviously, again, we can do the Mastemon all turns effects to just place as a bottom security, get rid of it. If we do the Andromon first, we will then add this and then recover a card there. If we do that, the newest trigger will once again be Mastemon as well as Magnemon once again, like both of them trigger again. So in this case, we would still get to then put Magnemon on security. It's just important to know that they both do trigger again. Maybe in the instance of like we had already used the once per turn effect, we'd be scared of the Magnemon. But in this case, because it's kind of crazy that because the one digivolving plays something and removes the security, security, you will pretty much always get your effects first. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is going to be Hudie. Two things. Number one, let's say specifically going to be Hudiemon's when attacking and how you can kind of loop a tamer, if that makes sense. So let's say in this case, you know, my hand's looking something like this. Let's say I've got this Cheetos on board. So what we can do is go ahead and swing into security. We've got when attacking once per turn, as well as alliance triggering at the same time. So let's just say we go ahead and do alliance first, trigger this to draw 1, and then what we can do is using the Cheetos effect here, we can do when any of your Hudie trait Digimon suspend by suspending this tamer minus 3,000 something. So let's just say, I don't know, we give minus 3,000 to this Mastemon here. And then what we can do is then do the when attacking of Hudie to return a CS tamer to hand to then activate its on play. So then we activate its on play to then play a 5-cost lower CS card from hand. So what we can do is just play Cheetos straight back, and then Cheetos on play will then play another Seedramon, and then we can use, in this case we can only have one instance of Alliance. But let's say in the instance where we have another copy of Alliance from Erica, so in that case what we could do is, you know, then Alliance with the Seedramon that was just newly played off of Cheetos, and then Alliance with it, and then draw an extra card. So then now we're doing an extra 2 security checks with a bunch of DP, even though we only had 1 Digimon on board when this Hudie was even active. And even then, like, if you had evoed this and kept turn, you could have just played this immediately and then swing, bounce the Cheetos, play this, and then alliance with this. So it's kind of 3 bodies off of just the, or 2 extra bodies off of just the Hudiemon, which is pretty cool. So one way I could then maybe loop Ryuji in this instance would be we could swing with Hudiemon. We've got double alliance triggering plus Ryuji. So what we want to do is we're going to use Ryuji's first, suspend him to play Comet Hammer, de-digivolve one of these Magnas. Then we can use Hudiemon to bounce the Ryuji, play the Ryuji, and then we can go Alliance, suspend the Seedramon, draw a card, and then since something is suspended, use Ryuji again, use Comet Hammer again, de-digivolve the other one, and then maybe if we had like another body somehow, we could use the second Alliance to then Alliance again and draw an extra card. So kind of crazy stuff, and the fact that you can loop these tamers is pretty ridiculous. But that's neither here nor there. But just this deck has a lot of nuances with how you order effects, so just make sure you guys are kind of doing it one by one. And then the last thing I want to talk about is going to specifically be with this the Hudiemon rookie. So Betamon, Gatsu, and I believe Tento. All of these have the same when attacking once per turn effect. So these cards are pretty straightforward at first, right? It says you may play a play cost for 5 or lower, a Digimon with Hudie trait from hand without paying the cost Digimon effect. Played, can't digivolve, delete it, and an opponent's turn, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so in the case of, let's say we had like one of these, we could go ahead and swing security. You know, we draw off the Seedramon, and we could use the Betamon, maybe play out another Seedramon. Maybe this was in our hand, play out another Seedramon for free, and then we could go ahead and use Alliance, suspend this, and then draw up. And then obviously we couldn't do something like evoing a Shakumon because it says, even though we have the requirements, like we couldn't use these two because this one can't digivolve, but maybe we could use these two because, you know, this was digivolved properly off of the Betamon. But you guys get what I mean. This Digimon is given the condition by the Betamon that it can't digivolve and is deleted until the end of your opponent's turn. Now, the confusion with this card, and I want to make full disclaimer, at the time of recording this video, what I'm about to say has not been confirmed, and there is no official ruling, as far as I know, from Bandai or any of the great, wonderful people in the Judge Discord. Basically, what I'm saying is, let's say you've got something like a Takumi on field. So Takumi says, when any of your Digimon with the CS trait would leave the battle area, even by your own effects, by suspending this tamer and trashing 2 same-level Digimon cards from one of your CS Digimon, it doesn't even have to be the one that you know, was going to leave, but it basically protects it from leaving. So let's say I've got, I don't know, let's say I've got a weird stack. So I've got like Hudie, and then I've got you know, this stack under here, and then I go ahead and swing security, and then use the Betamon effect to then play out the Seedramon, and then, you know, let's say it reaches the end of my opponent's turn, so my opponent, you know, let's say they just pass, like do nothing. I attack their security, do 2 checks, add a bunch of DP, and then, like, let's say I just pass, and then let's say they just pass, okay? Just to make things simple. Now, what'll happen is this Digimon was given the condition of until the end of your opponent's turn, this Digimon can't digivolve and it is deleted. There's 2 interpretations to this. Number one is, okay, let's say it reaches the end of my turn, or my opponent's turn, and then, you know, this all turns effect triggers. I'm basically going to use Takumi, suspend this, detach these two, protect the Seadramon that the Betamon had played. Now it goes back over to my turn. Let's, you know, unsuspend, draw, get all my effects, whatever. And then let's say I've got this Shakumon in hand, and I want to DNA specifically with this Seadramon that I play and the Hudie. The question is, can or can I not DNA? There's two interpretations to this. Number one would be, the effect of Betamon says it can't digivolve, period, but then is deleted at the end of your opponent's turn. So we've already passed the opponent's turn, but because it can't digivolve, it says this Digimon can't digivolve just at all, so you would not be able to do this whatsoever. The other interpretation is, okay, what this means is until the end of your opponent's turn, this Digimon can't digivolve and is deleted at that same timing. So then, since we're past that turn, now those restrictions are off, and now it would be able to digivolve, we would be able to go into Shakumon. There's not really a clear answer on this, and I just wanted to give that, make that known to you all. My interpretation on this, and the way I understand just from reading the original text, the Japanese text, many of you know I'm fluent, and it makes it a little bit more clear, but still not really. My interpretation of this is this effect is saying it can't digivolve, period, but then is also deleted at the end of your opponent's turn. To give you guys some other examples of cards that are worded kind of similarly, or stuff in the past that we've seen, I have two examples here. So I have number 1, Strikedramon from BT13. This card says, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your Marcus Daemons, also treated as Digimon, 3000 DP, whatever, can't digivolve and gains blocker. So all of those conditions are placed on Marcus Daemon until the end of your opponent's turn, and as soon as that opponent's turn is over, all those restrictions get lifted. Okay, now note how this is worded: until the end of your opponent's turn, all these effects happen. Whereas the Betamon is saying, this Digimon, the Digimon this effect played can't digivolve, and then is deleted at the end of your opponent's turn. So it's kind of two separate things, whereas like Strikedramon says all of these happen until the end of your opponent's turn. Another example would be Lord Nightmon, where this one places on the opponent and not you, but it says one of your opponents digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon, blah blah blah, then one of your opponent's Digimon can't digivolve until the end of their turn, so it places that restriction until the end of their turn. So from my understanding of these cards, especially the Strikedramon, as well as just reading the original text, my opinion on this is that assuming you had done this play, survived, made your Seadramon survive with the Takumi, you would not be able to DNA Digivolve with the Shakumon. That being said, this is going to, unfortunately, probably just depend on your head judge, and until we get a ruling, official ruling from Bandai and or Mr. Robusushi, the level 0 judge for Digimon, this one's up in the air, but if you ask me, I would say they would not be able to Digivolve, period. But that's just a little fun brain teaser for you guys, and that is going to be the end of the video. Hopefully that answered any questions you might have about the BT23 and the EX9 format. If you got anything else you want to mention or run by me, please let me know down in the comment section below. But that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.